Alright, what's going on today, guys? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at another set of 5 underrated weapons in Elden Ring. And with this list, it's not exactly in a particular order, with 5 being the worst and 1 being the best. I just grabbed 5 more weapons that I feel like deserve a little bit more attention. With that out of the way, let's start things off at the number 5 spot. Starting things off at the number 5 spot and making its second appearance in one of my videos, we're going to be revisiting the Halo Scythe. This thing does extremely well against those who live in death and death birds because its Ash Ward does exclusively holy damage and they're weak to holy damage. At the same time, however, the Scythe itself does have inherent blood loss buildup on it, so we all know how busted that can be. But as you're about to see here, it can completely melt some even later game death birds, and at the same time you're able to keep your distance as well. I'd say where this weapon really shines the most is going to be the early to mid game, as some of the later game bosses do have stupid holy resistance, but at the same time it's still going to be a viable weapon for taking out mobs or clearing dungeons, because they have a bunch of skeletons in them obviously. But I'd say it's a really well-rounded weapon, all things considered. I really think you guys should take a look at this one. That's going to be the Halo Scythe. Let's go ahead and move to the number 4 spot. Coming in at number 4, this is going to be the Rosus Axe. Up until this time last week, I legitimately had no idea this thing was even in the game. I happened to stumble across it in a short or a feed or somewhere on YouTube, can't remember which one it was. But I saw the gameplay and I was like, wow, this thing is actually pretty good, so I decided to slide it into today's video. So what we're going to want to do here is use its Ash of War primarily. You slam the axe down and it summons 3 spirits that also hit the boss. Works really well for those larger stationary bosses, and it can do extremely good damage when you have your successive attack talismans. As you guys saw there, just 2 hits, he's already at half health. This is a new game +7 avatar, by the way, just so we're putting in perspective the kind of health pool we're looking at. And with this weapon specifically, make sure you guys let me know if you've ever used this one. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do a full playthrough with this weapon just to see kind of its full damage capability. So, or even maybe some shorts if I can get the boss down with it. So I'd like to look into it a little bit more. And I feel like axes as a whole in this game are just kind of overshadowed by some more viable options. So I was really happy to go ahead and put something in the axe category into this list. And I do intend on looking into it, as I mentioned previously. I was going to cut it right here, but apparently my ADHD got the best of me here, and this other enemy didn't want to go away. So we're going to go ahead and throw out one more Ash here, and we're going to take this guy out just to showcase the Ash and its damage potential one more time. Even on movier enemies, not too bad. Let's go ahead and move forward into the number 3 spot. Sliding into the number 3 spot, we're going to be taking a look at the Helphens Steeple Greatsword. If you guys have seen my shorts lately, you probably know by now that I've been using this weapon pretty exclusively, and I decided to make a case for it in this video as well, because I just feel like it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. It does come with the inherent frostbite on it, so that has it going for it. Also, it's Ash of War, the Ghost Flame, it stacks as well, so it'll just get double frostbite. It doesn't do nearly as well as like the Death's Poker or the Dark Moon Greatsword, but it's definitely viable in its own right. It does have the Greatsword moveset, and I've said it before, but it's probably among my favorite in the entire game. So, you know, you get those nice, clean, heavy hits along with the running heavy, which I like to use a lot. I've been debating on making a top 5 Greatswords video just because I like pretty much all of them. So if that's something you guys would be interested in, make sure to let me know down in the comments. But proceeding forward with the fight and the weapon itself, it is an int-based weapon, and the Ash of War scales primarily off of ints, so if you're running a full caster build, this thing can actually be a pretty viable weapon for your offhand or sidearm weapon as well. And this thing's true potential is finally about to come out here with this next hit, as I finally proc Frostbite on the Godskin about a minute into this fight. And we're just going to go ahead and reapply the Ghost Flame on the weapon as well. I think it lasts like a minute 30, 2 minutes, somewhere in there, something like that. But with this weapon specifically, and other weapons that have that effect duration, you guys are going to be wanting to run the Old Lord's Talisman, so it'll turn that just a little bit longer. I'm not sure on the exact timing of it. As you guys can see, once we finally proc Frostbite on the Godskin, it made Phase 2 pretty trivial. These guys can be pretty scary and pretty movie in Phase 2, but something like this against them makes taking care of them easy peasy. That's going to wrap it up for the Helphens Steeple. Let's go ahead and move into the number 2 spot. Moving things along at the number 2 spot, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Star Fists. I feel like fist weapons just recently surfaced as some of the most viable and potent weapons in this entire game. They're obviously really buffable with your successive attack talismans, and then their overall DPS can just be frickin' insane. Ignore me using Golden Vow twice right there. It doesn't work that way. I just accidentally clicked it twice. We're going to go ahead and get to the fight itself. We're going to do the dual tree sentinels. These guys are on New Game +7. And as you guys can see, with just a few hits, he's already down to half his health bar. And they do come with inherent blood loss as well. So, I mean, as you're doing your successive hits, you can get that nice bleed proc every so often. But weapons like these, where you can just literally just stand in front of the boss and spam them out and cut them down like this, I just feel like they're just insane. Really easy to use, especially, you know, user-friendly for the newer players that are just starting the game. I would recommend definitely looking into this one here. And I'm not usually an advocate for standard smithing stone weapons, but I feel like these work extremely well with that, meaning that you can infuse them with any Ash of War you want, so they can kind of, you know, fit your playstyle however you like. I'd recommend throwing on Royal Knight's Resolve for that big one hit at the beginning of your fights, or Crag Blade just for increased damage across, you know, those bigger chunkier bosses that are going to require more than one hit to take out. And to get the most potential out of these weapons, make sure you guys are using your successive attack talismans and then the thorny crack tier in your physic too, because all that stuff will stack together and it'll just add up to some really, really crazy damage. So that's going to be the Starfist at number 2. Let's go ahead and wrap things up at the number 1 spot. Wrapping things up at the number 1 spot, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Regalia of Eochaid. I just feel like this one's a little bit overshadowed by its larger companion, the Marius Executioner Sword. However, this weapon does have the same Ash of War as its older brother does, and it's extremely viable for larger bosses or stationary bosses like Gideon here, where you just go ahead and throw the corkscrew attack, and it's super buffable with talismans and your physic. And as you guys are about to see here, it does well over 3/4 of his health. This is going to be a New Game +7 Gideon, by the way, so just to put it in perspective, he's not sitting at his base HP. But it has a good moveset. I really enjoy using the Ash of War, and as you guys can see, it can just completely trivialize a couple bosses. But that's going to wrap it up for the Regalia of Eochaid. It's also going to wrap it up for today's video. As always, I appreciate you guys coming out, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.